In this video, I want to briefly talk about something that's been coming up a lot with clients recently, and that's been getting burnt out on doing PT or rehab exercises. And so the question is, why does this happen? And when this happens, what can we do about it? So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in. So it's really common in the process of healing chronic pain that you can get to a point where you've tried all the rehab exercises and then everything just starts making you either feel worse or that there's actually no change. And this is super frustrating. It gets to a point where you just become kind of over the idea of actually doing any sort of rehab or restorative exercise. And I think at this point, you really have two options. You can double down and then go even further down the rabbit hole of trying to find the perfect exercise, which is often just a road to nowhere, or you can accept the fact that there's something that's off about this project of making exercise the thing that's going to ultimately heal you. And so I got to this point in my journey, and many people get here as well. So if you're at this stage, this is totally normal. And in this video, we're going to break down exactly how to approach this, what might be going on, and what to do about it. So if what I'm saying so far resonates with you, and you're somebody who just feels like you're kind of over it, and every time you do rehab exercises, it hurts, but then you'll do regular activities in your day-to-day life and it'll be totally fine and it doesn't make any sense, you're trying to kind of figure out what's going on, then this is definitely going to apply to you. So the way I would sum this up in one statement is that movement only solves movement-related problems. So just because we have a symptom that manifests in the body doesn't mean that the cause of it or the intervention for it is going to be movement. Now, movement is beneficial on a number of other levels. It can help you regulate your nervous system, change your hormonal profiles, improve efficiency, endurance, strength, confidence, overall energy levels. Like there's a lot of things that exercise does that is super beneficial, but exercise and movement is not a cure-all for all body symptoms. In fact, there's often a lot of other things at play when we're talking about chronic symptoms. And some of that is going to include things like life fulfillment, like do you feel good in all your relationships and your job, what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, where you're going in your life. Unprocessed emotions is another big one. So emotional skills in general, especially in the context of challenging life circumstances or identity changes or relational issues. And then another common one could be something like poor recovery or stress management. So that could just be you're not eating right, you're not sleeping that well, you're not recovering that well from your activities, maybe too much screen time, maybe not a good morning routine, you don't get enough sunlight, you don't get enough social interaction. Like there's a lot of other things at play that could put you in a state of overall poor recovery and nervous system dysregulation. So when you're in this trap of trying to use movement to address these non-movement related issues, what ends up happening is you just run into this wall of frustration where movements aren't working. And when you actually try to approach movement, sometimes it can even make it feel worse because you're looking at these symptoms that the body is producing as the problem, and you're using the exercise as a way to solve that problem. Now, when you're constantly communicating to the body that it's the problem and these symptoms need to go away, what you ultimately do is you just freak your nervous system out even a little bit more, which oftentimes is like turning the volume knob up on your symptoms, and then you're putting a bunch of pressure and criticism on yourself without even realizing it, and next thing you know, your symptoms and pain are even worse than they were before you decided to do the exercise. So at this point, the problem really isn't with your body, but it's actually your relationship with exercise and your relationship with your body and your misunderstanding of where some of the symptoms and pain are coming from. So we need to do a couple of things to put this back on track, to reestablish a healthy relationship with exercise and our body, and to actually make changes in our pain and symptoms. If you're getting value from this video so far, consider liking this video, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. All these things help the algorithm to help me help more people. So the first thing is to reappraise the role that exercise and movement is going to play in your healing journey. And so what we want to think about is exercise is not there to fix the body, and instead the symptoms in the body are like an alarm signal that's telling us that there's something that's stressing our system out. I gave some examples of what this could be earlier, But the way that we need to learn how to approach this is by increasing presence when we do have symptoms. So instead of jumping to, oh my God, something's wrong, let me freak out, let me tell myself a story in my head about what's going on here, let me try to go on the internet and look for a fix and look for a cure, or just reinforce beliefs I already have about something being wrong with my body. Instead, we need to pause for a second and increase our awareness to just check out what's there. So what I mean by checking out what's there is looking into emotions that might be present, thoughts that might be present, physical sensations from a raw data perspective, but also from the way that we experience them. Are they pleasant or unpleasant? Do we move towards or away from them? Do we immediately go into a narrative and start telling a story to ourselves about what these symptoms mean? If we can do this in the moments after a symptom starts, what we can ultimately do is start to recognize patterns. So for example, we might be triggered in a certain circumstance, some difficult emotions come up, and instead of recognizing those emotions because they're too painful to see, we just repress them and then we'll start to feel body symptoms instead. Well, if we increase the presence in that moment, what we can actually do is provide a little bit of space to increase awareness of what that might be. All of a sudden we go, oh my God, whenever this happens, then I get body symptoms afterwards. But if I pay attention to what the actual feeling tone is when something like this happens, the symptoms don't go straight to the body. In fact, they're experienced more as a feeling instead of a body symptom. Now, that's just one example. That's one of the many things that you could find here. But the job here is to start to become curious to what's going on. So when you feel a symptom, it's not, oh my God, something's wrong. It's like, let me check out what's going on with my experience. Is there something here that I'm not seeing? It's like you get curious about it, and then that brings in this attitude of openness and non-judgment, and like, let me explore this a little bit. And then that takes the pressure off, and it just makes it a heck of a lot easier. Now, in terms of getting into exercise, what you can do is instead of going to this rehab exercise that has all this narrative attached to it, instead think, I'm doing exercise not as a way to fix the body, but to support the body in responding to whatever these threats that it's perceiving are. So we want to think about what can help that body thrive and feel nourished. So just general exercise is often the way to go here. So aerobic exercise a couple times a week, make sure you're eating good food, make sure you're getting to bed at a reasonable time, limit screen time at night, get sunlight in the morning. All these things, meditation, breath work, they can help support the body through whatever this challenging time is. And even if it's not clear as to what those challenges might be, by increasing presence and supporting the body, ultimately these things will meet in the middle. You begin to understand what it is that you actually have to work on. And you'll find in the meantime that you're experiencing a lot less pain and symptoms because your nervous system overall will be much better regulated. Now, those are just a few ways that we could approach these issues, and we could go into much greater detail on each of them, which is something that I do inside my group movement coaching programs. So if you're interested in that, go down to the link in the description and click to apply. But many of you watching this video might be thinking, well, what if my body symptoms and movement related issues are actually due to something being wrong with the body? Now, I'm not saying that never happens, but if you're watching this channel, chances are you've been dealing with pain and symptoms for longer than 3 months, and right now your condition would be considered something chronic. So if that's the case and you've been rehabbing, you've experienced this plateau in symptoms for 3 months or greater, you're in what I call rehab purgatory, and the overwhelming probability is that there's actually no pain or symptoms being created as a result of a structural problem, but the probability is that the underlying mechanism here is neural pathway dysfunction in the brain, and these pain and symptoms that you're experiencing, although very real, have been learned as a pattern by your brain because of the way these neural pathways have learned to fire together. Now, in Rehab Purgatory, 80% of your program is going to be restorative type exercises, and you're probably going to spend about 2 to 3 hours per week searching online for new exercises or root causes. Your underlying beliefs are that you need to find this root cause in order to then get the right treatment to be able to heal, and you actually, in your mind, put off the possibility of being able to heal without understanding or having an answer about this root cause. And if this sounds like you, I'd be willing to bet that you've been pretty much exclusively focused on working with your body from a physical perspective, and you haven't tried other things like emotional regulation techniques, expressive writing, belief and perspective shifting, or mindfulness practice. Now, in this case, your beliefs about something being wrong with the body and needing a physical cause are actually obstructing you from working on the root cause, which is this underlying neural pathway dysfunction in your brain. The actual way that you're going to heal in this case is to restructure these neural pathways in your brain through a combination of reappraising your relationship with exercise and working on things like emotional regulation and mindfulness practice. These techniques and many other techniques that can help restructure these pathways are the exact work that we're working on inside of my new group movement coaching program. So if this sounds like you and you're stuck in rehab purgatory, but want to get out of rehab purgatory so you can have the life that you want, go ahead and apply at the link below in the description. All right, so that does it for this video. As always, thanks for watching. Just to recap here, don't try to use movement to solve non-movement problems. If you can put movement in its rightful place, learn to listen to your body, use movement to support your body, and then work on all those other things that we talked about, you're going to find you can restructure those neural pathways in your brain, and you'll be on the road to healing. So thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace.